Hey, party people. Today we're going to work on mutes. We're going to deep dive into what a mute is and how to create it using paint. Today we are using the Nicker brand gouache again. I have basically fallen in love with this gouache. It's really giving Winsor & Newton a run for its money and kind of leaving the Holbein in the dust. I still have one more gouache brand. No, wait, two. The Pabeo and the Talons brand that I still need to really deep dive into. But this Nicker brand is just awesome. Anyway, so this is going to be another deep dive painting sesh. This is going to be the last in the really technical color theory videos for a little while. The next color theory videos are going to be taking all this technical information I have been throwing at y'all and applying it to fashion. Are you excited? Are you excited? This is what you've been waiting for, right? I really felt like I needed to give you all this, a lot of this background technical vocabulary, just like really show you where these colors come from so that I can show you how it applies in picking colors for your collections and how to do color blocking and how colors affect the mood of a dress and, how to make things more figure flattering with different colors. And, I'm going to talk about all those things in the future videos now that we've really gone through the technical. Okay, this is what I do in class. Where I take a concept, I deep dive into the technical before I talk about how it applies to fashion directly. Okay, so yeah, that's going to be the next few color theory videos where I talk about how complements work in fashion and how mutes work in fashion and how monochromatic color schemes work in fashion, etc., etc. All right. And so, yeah. All right. So mutes. All right. Let's get all technical about mutes. What are mutes? They are the fourth out of the four ways to desaturate a color. There's tints, shades, tones, and mutes. And these four words are very specific in the way they're used in color theory. I know people use adjectives and verbs, toning things down, muting things down, tinting things, shading things much more loosely, and sometimes I do that too. But when we're talking about exact color mixing, these words tint, shade, tone, and mute are very specific. Tint is color plus white, tone is color plus gray, and that could be a light gray, dark gray, warm gray, cool gray, etc. And shade is color plus black, and mute is color plus its complement, which is its opposite on the color wheel. So red plus green, they're mutes. Orange and blue are mutes. Yellow and violet are mutes. And they're mutes and they're used together to mute the other. As in, when you say mute, you think silent, quieting down. Okay, so when you add green to red, you're quieting down the intensity of the red. Literally what it means. Red plus orange is red-orange. Okay? And when you add red plus yellow, that's orange. And when you have red plus blue, that's purple, and red plus purple is red purple, or you're starting to get into like red, violet, magenta categories. But when you add red and green, that's when you start getting these more neutrally colors. And I really, if you really want to understand colors, I highly recommend that you do similar color mixing experiments. You don't have to work really hard on creating a beautiful gradient like I'm doing right now. Like, I like painting gradients, and I wanted to make something pretty for y'all to look at while I'm talking. But just simply try mixing a red plus a green to see how that red looks compared to red plus black or red plus gray. okay? Because those are all different ways of desaturating the red, but they're completely different. You know, the warmth of the green, you know, green has a lot of yellow in it. The warmth of the green is going to make the red more brown. Okay? Like gray plus red, depending on how warm or cool the gray is, it's going to keep red pretty cool. Like red is a cool, it's a warm color, but it's on the cool side of warm. if that makes sense to you. And so red is one of those colors, if you tip it in one direction, it could get really cool, like burgundy, or it can get really warm, like poppy red orange. You know, anyone who wears a lot of red lipstick knows what I'm talking about. So when you add the green, the warmth of the green, and then toning it down because it's the opposite, you know, you get these warmer browns, and you also get these duller greens. And again, those greens are going to be really different from when you have green plus black versus green plus gray versus green plus red. And again, I really encourage you to mix those colors yourselves with the paint that you have. Now, just like in the previous video where I was talking about, especially with the grays, with tones, how you can really change the color depending on whether you add color plus dark gray, color plus medium gray, color plus light gray. Okay, you're getting lots of different colors. And then colors versus plus warm gray, plus French gray, plus cool gray, you know, all these different things that you could do. The same is true of mutes. It's not just full on red plus full on green. I mean, those colors are awesome, but you can also, again, add in a black so you have a shade of a mute, and you can get some really dark, dull greens, beautiful olives, or you can add some white. And see how here I'm adding some water to the brown that I created with the red and green. And so you're getting lighter and lighter browns. Okay, so that's a tint of a mute. I know, like in class when I'm lecturing, I get all tongue twisted and I'm like, there's no editing in class. Anyway, so yeah, you add black to it, you start getting super dark, like dark umber, like black brown colors, and then you add white and you get the lighter browns, and you have the whole range. And you can play with that too, and you can also make a tone of a mute or whatever you want. But understanding, you know, the base of a mute will really help you. So here I am mixing white and black. So I have a bit of a cool gray because the permanent white and the ivory black tend to make a cool-ish gray. Not super cool, but cool-ish. And then adding red with a touch of green is now creating these tones. And they're like light neutral, but not bright enough to be pastel-y. Like we associate pastels that are very bright, not dulled down with a lot of the gray. Okay, but now I'm creating these like dusty roses and these muted celadon jade colors, which I really like. And again, it all depends on how much gray. You know, you can have something that's a lot of gray, something that's a lot more green, so that it's just lightly dulled down or borderline. So this bar, I'm showing you just a tiny percentage of the colors that you could create by using red and green and white and black, essentially. before I paint each of these mute bars, I mix the colors to match the color wheel that I'm using, just so you all are seeing some kind of consistency. So of course I have orange and blue tubes of paint, but they're not the oranges and blues on the color wheel. So I'm just, I'm throwing in a yellow into this orange so that I'm getting a closer match to the color wheel, and then I'm going to try to get the right blue. Now I am doing the orange and blue mutes color bar, mute bar, gradient bar, bar. And again, adding a little bit of the blue is going to mute down that orange. And adding a bit of the orange will mute down the blue. And when you get to the middle, okay, you're going to end up with a different warm neutral than you did with the red and green, because, some people think like, well, when you get to the middle, you basically have red, yellow, and blue all up in there. Because when you have red and green, you have red, and green is yellow and blue, right? And then you have orange and blue, which is orange is red and yellow, and then blue. But it's the different quantities and ratios of the colors that create different warm neutrals, different browns. So when you mix orange and blue, you're going to get a slightly different brown than you would mixing red and green. Also, it's nice to have options. And so when you are trying to get a nice brown that goes well with orange and you want your undertone family to be all the same, I would recommend that you create a brown using orange with blue. And again, with the green, if you want a brown and a bunch of warm neutrals that all share a greenish undertone, then I would suggest that you start with the green and start adding bits of red and, maybe a little bit of black as needed. Now, a thing that's very different from the orange and blue mutes to the red and green mutes is values. Remember, value is the lightness or darkness of a color. And so when you're mixing these colors, the value becomes very important. Blue is a very dark color. So adding a little bit of blue, this very dark color, dark value color, to orange is going to impact the orange a lot, because the orange is only at like 40%. And this kind of straight up blue is more like 70–80%, right? Whereas the red and green, they're pretty similar in value. Like when you look at the straight up green and the straight up red, one is not significantly darker than the other, right? Whereas with the orange and blue, the blue is significantly darker than the orange. So when you are mixing your oranges and your blues, remember to chill out on that blue. Keep a conservative hand on that blue, because it will really overpower the orange very quickly. And here again, I am mixing mutes and also tints and shades and tones of mutes so that you can get another few ideas on how to create these colors. So I've taken the mute and I am adding more and more water to create tints of mutes. And you can see how these colors lightened up. Like you can really see the differences in the browns and the undertones a little bit more clearly. Yes? No? Hopefully? It's okay. It doesn't come overnight. You have to kind of increase your eye sensitivity by practicing looking at colors. Okay? That's what I do a lot in my color classes, make my students practice looking at colors. And so here we are with the orange. I'm adding a lot of water, so you're getting a tint of orange going into tints of mutes, and now you're seeing these they're greenish because they're more orange than they are blue. But again, you get these like khaki olivey colors that are again really different from the mutes of greens mixed in with the red. And now on this side, we are doing, what am I doing? Oh, I'm mixing in some gray with my blue to create tones of mutes. Tones of mutes of shits and tints. Well, did I say shits and tints? Good job, Zoe. Oh. Oh my God. My boss one time asked me if I wanted to teach a high school class, and I was just thinking, sitting there thinking like, oh. Even my husband was like, I don't think that's a good idea. Like, you with anyone that's young, I mean, even 18-year-olds, that's just, because again, you can't edit in person. Oh. Anyways, here we go. We have created mutes, but with a light gray. And so I've lightened the blue a lot. The value of the orange is a little bit darker because the gray is kind of close to the value of the orange. And now you're seeing these tints of a mute. And now you've got these awesome dull blues and cool browns. Okay, more in the umber sepia kind of family. I don't know. I'm not great with those words. I just like, when I talk about color, I like being very explicit in saying cool brown, warm brown, cool gray. Like those things make more sense to me than trying to use, branded names. I used to have this job and we did a lot of leather. And, people don't get super adventurous with leather colors. And it's not like I blame them. Like, leather is typically an investment piece. You'll buy a leather jacket and wear for many years or hope to wear for many years. And so not a lot of people will buy a raspberry pink leather jacket, but they tend to stick to browns and blacks. But, every season you have to make it new and exciting, right? And so we would have to sit there and come up with new and exciting ways to tell people this is our new dark brown and this is our new light brown. And we would sit around and think of ways, different words for brown. We resorted to a lot of really just smoking and drinking things. We had tobacco, we had whiskey, scotch, amaretto, coffee, espresso. A lot of these are great brown descriptives, espresso being like your darkest brown and coffee being just like slightly under that, and amaretto having a little bit more red in it, and whiskey getting like a little bit light with, gold undertones, so many browns, so many colors for brown, and then you get like more caramel, cognac, butterscotch. Then you start getting hungry, you want candy, and you're in this meeting listing browns, and you're like, okay, let's take a break, and everyone goes back to do their own thing, and then someone hops into your office and is like, oh, I thought of another one. Browns. So many words for brown, 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 brown. But in color class, in design class, I like to talk to my students as, hey, let's do a more reddish brown. Let's do a more dark brown. Like, I think that actually is more helpful. But marketing, branding, making things exciting and stuff. Now we are doing the yellow and violet mutes. And again, I am adjusting my paint colors to match up with my color wheel. And yeah, I think I kind of really struggled with the violet because it was very, very different from the color wheel violet. Not to say that my paints are wrong, that's just the paint I had. And the violet and the yellow, their values are even more extremely different than the orange and the blue, okay? Like yellow tends to be like a 10, 20% value, and the violet is your darkest on the color wheel, which is at like 80, 90, give or take. So as I was saying before, like be careful when you start adding violet to yellow, because the violet can be overwhelming really quickly if you add too much. So keep a light touch on that violet. So to review, one of the reasons why people like complements so much is because they're opposites on the color wheel. They offer the most contrast to each other, which makes the contrast pop more. And so when you put blue and orange together, the blue looks bluer and the orange looks oranger. Someone asked me to sum up color theory in one concept, like what's the point of understanding color theory? It's just colors. It's like, well, the whole point of color theory is to see how different colors go with different colors, because when you put certain colors with different colors, the color itself looks different. For example, when you put orange next to blue, the orange really pops and the blue really pops because they're opposites. The contrast really makes them pop, okay? When you put blue next to green, they look harmonious and they start blending in together, okay? Neither of them really pop. When you look at a lot of movie posters, their whole goal is to be eye-catching, and so they will employ complements a lot so that the color contrast and the pops really catch your eye, okay? Next time you go to the movie theater or a mall where there's a bunch of movie theaters, look at some posters and see if you can spot the color schemes that they're using and why they're using them. If they want, like a lot of the time when they want something that's more like, this is going to be a slow winding drama, they'll use more colors that are harmonious and closer together on the color wheel. And when they want something that's going to be more action, drama, things exploding, you're going to see a lot of orange, red, fire with a lot of this blue, green kind of background landscape. A lot of blue glass skyscrapers exploding with like orange flames shooting out, you know, like that kind of thing. So complements make things pop, but there is a harmony to that because they're exact opposites. Opposites attract, something, something. And so when you start muting them, okay, when you have an orange and a blue, and then you have like a muted orange and then some browns that have orange and blue in them, then you're starting to get similar undertones. And you're starting to create a family of colors that work well together, despite the fact that they're so different. Okay? And again, in future videos, we're gonna talk more. I could talk about color theory until forever. So, I mean, as long as y'all are continue to be interested in studying color theory, I will keep making videos going into color theory. I think color and understanding color is so important, not just to fashion design, but to any kind of visual art or design, product design, graphic design, because color is number one thing we notice about any product, whether it's a wearable or not. When you walk into a store, okay, and you're looking at a bunch of clothes, what is the thing that makes you gravitate towards something? Okay, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the color. Okay? You don't know if it fits you right yet. You don't know how the fabric feels yet. You haven't even been over there to touch it. You don't know if it's going to make your butt look good. You don't know if it feels really great against the skin. You don't know, unless you go to a designer-specific store, you probably don't know who made it. But that color is going to attract you. It's a color that you love. It's a color that you hate, and you're just looking at it because you're like, why would anyone make that color? Okay? But the color will attract you. Okay? You're going to look at it and be like, oh, that color is great. Or, oh, that color always looks awesome on me. I want it. Or, oh, it's black. I love it already. Okay, that's just me. So getting the color right in clothes, in collections, in your products, really important. So again, I could talk about color theory for 800 years. Yeah. So again, this last bar, it is, what was I doing? I was adding tints and shades and making tints and shades and tones of tints and shades and tones. So I'm just testing out a little scrap piece of the Fabriano paper that I bought in LA. It's really cheap paper. It's super, super smooth, not the cold press paper I was using earlier. I was demoing on the Arches cold press 140-pound watercolor paper for the mute bars, and that is my holy grail watercolor paper. It's my favorite. It's also as expensive as shit, so yeah. I'm testing out all these other papers. I'm not going to go as in-depth with the tertiary mutes as I did the primary and secondary mutes, but I did want to show you again that you can use tertiary complements to create mutes and tints and shades and tones of mutes as well. And let me tell you, when I was shooting this, I remember distinctly, I was like, wow, this paper is terrible. Okay, that was like the first impression, and then as I kept painting, I got more the hang of it, so I really do have to test this paper out more before I can really slam it, but I did not have a great first impression, but it was just barely good enough where I'm like, all right, let's try it again later. But yeah, so here's yellow, green, and red, violet. So what are tertiary colors? Okay, so primary colors are red, yellow, blue. Secondary colors are orange, green, and purple or violet. And your tertiary colors are the in-betweens, your yellow greens and your red oranges, etc., etc. And again, you can use your tertiary complements, opposites on the color wheel, to create mutes like I did with the yellow green and the red violet. And again, like I did with the others, you can add black to create shades of mutes, and you can add gray to create tones, and etc., etc., etc. And again, you know, using these express colors are going to create slightly different neutrals. So here I created a light tone of a mute, and I kind of love that weird mauve-y clay color. I love that. Here we are with a little bit of yellow-orange and a little bit of the blue-violet, another pair of tertiary complements. And we're just going to mix those up. Ooh. And we get a bit more greeny browns in here. The nice thing about this paper, though, is it's so smooth that creating that gradient with a really thick gouache just... So here's another light gray mixed in with the mute. And now you have this like beautiful celery. It's like a really light celadon pottery color. I love that. And yeah, you really should be doing exactly what I'm doing, which is like playing around and kind of cataloging the colors that you use to create different colors. And even if you don't make your own YouTube videos, I mean, why not record yourself doing mixing exercises so you can go back and see, how did I mix that color again? Oh yeah, it was these colors. You know, is really a nice reference. Here is red orange with blue green, excuse me. I really hope that this video was helpful for you in understanding color theory more thoroughly. Please give this video a thumbs up if it helped you, and if you would like me to continue the color theory series, and if you want me to continue by applying these color concepts to fashion. My tentative lesson plan right now is to just straight up draw some croquis and slap some colors down, and we can study how different colors affect the designs of dresses. Okay, and that's really the most direct way to study it. And also another reason why I push people to learn basic drawing skills. You don't have to be a brilliant illustrator, but to have basic drawing skills so you can test colors in the way that I plan on showing you in future videos. Go mix up some paints, go have fun, go practice, subscribe if you haven't already. Drop me all your questions in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video.